Yo, what is up, guys? It is Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life today. I want to tell you a story that genuinely scared the hell out of me when I first heard it. And it might scare you too, but I think you need to hear it because it could save you from making the same mistake that so many people make, especially people who think they are doing fine financially. This is the story of a family I know making over $150,000 a year combined income, and how they ended up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, not from gambling, not from a business failure, not from a medical emergency, but from everyday spending, just normal, regular spending that slowly snowballed into a nightmare. Let me set the scene for you. There's this woman, I will call her Amy. She is a hardworking professional making around $80,000 a year. Her husband Jason makes about $70,000. So together, they are pulling in around $150,000 a year, which in most parts of the country is a solid middle-class income. Not rich, but comfortable, right? They own a modest house in the suburbs. They have 2 cars. They take a vacation once a year. They are living the dream, or so it seems, but here is what Amy did not know until it was too late. Jason had been slowly digging them into a massive hole over the course of several years. He was not a bad guy. He was not intentionally trying to ruin his family's future, but he had a spending problem, a serious one, and it started with small things: a new phone here, a nicer watch there, a weekend trip that went on the credit card, a fancier car than they needed because he wanted to look successful at work. Each individual purchase seemed reasonable in the moment, but over time they added up to something terrifying. One day, Jason came home and sat Amy down and told her the truth. He owed over $100,000 in high-interest debt between credit cards, personal loans, and payday loans that he had taken out to keep up with the payments on everything else. And Amy was completely blindsided. She had no idea they were in trouble. She thought they were doing fine because they had good jobs and a nice house. And everything looked okay on the surface, but underneath the surface, the foundation was crumbling. And when she found out the full extent of the debt, she broke down and cried because she realized they had been living a lie. They had been projecting an image of success while slowly drowning in financial quicksand. Now, I know what some of you are thinking: oh, that is ridiculous. How could someone let it get that bad? And I get why you would think that, but let me tell you something, it is way more common than you think. I have seen this happen to multiple people I know, and almost happened to me too. When I was in my early 20s, I was making decent money for my age, but I was spending every single cent of it, and then some. I had credit card debt. I had a car payment that was way too high. I was eating out constantly, buying clothes I did not need, going on trips I could not afford, and the whole time I told myself I deserved it. I worked hard. I earned this money. Why should I not enjoy it? And the result was that I had nothing saved, nothing invested, and a growing pile of debt that was keeping me trapped in a job I hated because I could not afford to quit. The thing about lifestyle creep is that it happens so gradually you do not even notice it. You get a raise and you upgrade your apartment. You get another raise and you buy a nicer car. You get a bonus and you book a fancy vacation. And before you know it, your expenses have risen to exactly match your income or even exceed it. And you are no better off than when you were making half as much money. You are just spending more to maintain a lifestyle that looks successful on Instagram, but is actually keeping you broke and stressed and trapped. And this is where the real danger lies. A lot of people think that making good money means they are financially safe. They think that because they have a high income, they do not need to worry about budgeting or tracking their spending or making conscious choices about where their money goes. And that is exactly the mindset that leads to disaster. Because income is not wealth. Income is just the fuel that flows through the engine. If you spend everything that comes in, you are no wealthier than someone making minimum wage, who also spends everything they make. You just have a fancier lifestyle and fancier problems. Let me tell you about one of the wealthiest people I have ever met. This guy has a net worth in the tens of millions. I met him at a charity event a few years back, and we got to talking, and I asked him what his biggest financial mistake was, and he thought about it for a second. And then he said, my biggest mistake was not a bad investment or a business failure. It was buying too much house too early. And he told me that when he first started making real money, he bought this enormous house with a huge mortgage, thinking it was a sign of success. And for years, he was house poor, pouring all of his extra income into mortgage payments, property taxes, and maintenance costs that left him with almost nothing to invest. And he said he would have been way better off buying a modest house and investing. The difference, that conversation completely changed the way I thought about spending. Because here was a guy who had way more money than I will probably ever have, and he was telling me that the biggest mistake of his financial life was spending too much on lifestyle stuff. Not investing badly, not getting cheated, just spending too much on things that did not actually make him happier in the long run. And think that is the key insight that most people miss. We spend money trying to buy happiness or status or comfort, and sometimes it works in the short term. But over time, the happiness fades, and we need to spend more to get the same feeling, and we get stuck on a hedonic treadmill where we are constantly chasing the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next level of consumption, and we never actually feel satisfied. I have a friend named Marcus who is a classic example of this. Marcus makes around $120,000 a year, which is great money, and yet he is always stressed about money, always complaining about being broke. And I used to not understand it until I looked at where his money was going. He leases a luxury car for $700 a month. He eats out for lunch every single day, which is like $15 a pop. He has the newest iPhone, the newest laptop, a big fancy apartment in a trendy neighborhood. He goes on multiple vacations a year, and every single one goes on a credit card that he pays off slowly with interest. And when I asked him if he had any savings, he laughed and said, "What savings?" And when I asked him if he had an emergency fund, he said he had a credit card. I just shook my head because Marcus is a smart guy. He is good at his job, he works hard, but he has completely convinced himself that he cannot afford to save because all of his money goes to bills and expenses and never stops to realize that the bills and expenses are entirely his own choices. And here is the thing that really gets me about this whole situation. The people who fall into this trap are often the ones who look the most successful. On the outside, they have the nice car, the nice clothes, the nice apartment, the nice Instagram photos, and meanwhile, the person making half as much who drives a 10-year-old Honda and cooks dinner at home and reads library books for fun is quietly building real wealth that will compound into financial freedom years down the line, while the flashy spender is still trapped in the pay. See. Heck to paycheck cycle, wondering why life feels so hard. He went through a serious spending detox about 2 years ago where I tracked every single dollar I spent for 3 months, and let me tell you, it was embarrassing. I had no idea how much I was blowing on stupid stuff. Coffee here, fast food there, random Amazon purchases that I forgot about the day after they arrived, subscriptions that I was paying for and not even using. It all added up to hundreds of dollars a month that was just disappearing into nothing. And when I cut all of that out and redirected that money into savings and investments, I felt a sense of control over my life that I had never felt before. And the crazy part was that my quality of life did not even go down. I was not depriving myself of anything important. I was just cutting out the waste. That was not actually making me happier, and I think that is the thing people are most afraid of when it comes to cutting back on spending. They think it is about deprivation and sacrifice and giving up things they love, but in my experience, it is actually the opposite. When you cut out the mindless spending, you start to appreciate the things that actually matter. More you cook a meal at home and it tastes better because you made it with care. You take a walk instead of buying something, and you feel better because you moved. Your body, you save up for something you really want instead of impulse buying it, and when you finally get it, it actually feels rewarding. Instead of hollow, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a hard, honest look at your spending for the next 30 days. Write down everything you spend money on. And I mean everything from the rent to the coffee to the subscription you forgot about, and at the end of the month, look at that list and ask yourself honestly, which of these expenses is actually making my life better and which ones are just habits or signals or things I bought because I thought I was supposed to, and then cut the stuff that is not serving you and redirect that money toward building the future you actually want. And I want you to remember the story of Amy and Jason. They dug themselves out of their debt hole eventually, but it took years of sacrifice and hard work, and they lost a lot of sleep and a lot of peace along and the crazy thing is that almost all of it was avoidable if they had just been more intentional about their spending from the beginning. You do not have to make that mistake. You can learn from theirs. Start paying attention to where your money is going. Start asking yourself if each purchase is actually moving you toward the life you want or pulling you further away from it. Start treating your spending like a reflection of your values instead of a reflex. And I easy over time, the small changes will add up to something massive. A lot of people think that wealth is about making more money, and that is part of it, but honestly, the bigger part is keeping more of what you make and letting it grow. And the easiest way to keep more of what you make is to stop spending it on stuff that does not matter. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to live like a monk, but you do need to be intentional, because the alternative is waking up one day like Jason did and realizing that you have spent years digging a hole that will take even more years to climb out of. And that is a feeling I would not wish on anyone. So take a look at your spending. Take control of your money and start building the life you actually want, instead of just the life that looks good from the outside piece.